CEO Live Talks.
I am Dr. Swannie Jett, and I have a passion for public health for over 30 years. Now, I'm in a position to affect change, and these are the critical conversations about health in our community with the people who can help me make those changes. Good afternoon. Welcome to CEO Live Talks. I'm your host, Dr. Swannie Jett, and today I have the pleasure to introduce my friend, Miss Arnita Gadson, West Jefferson County Task Force. And welcome to the set.
Thank you.
How you doing today?
I'm doing great.
All right. So, I really want to get into some heavy issues because we've been dealing with air pollution in the West End for almost 3 decades, longer than that. But first I want to ask, what sparked your interest into this area?
I live there.
Okay.
I was raised there. And actually, at the time I was there living and being raised, I did not recognize as a child, as many of us did, we did not know what the smells were. We actually didn't care as long as we could play and go to school, church, and do our things. I did not get interested until I was approached by one of our aldermen to ask me would I be interested in working with an environmental justice project. And I really had to take a step back because I honestly I wasn't aware exactly what environmental justice was. I think I had enough sense to kind of put it all together that this was an issue that needed to be looked into, but I didn't know how. So once I told him, yeah, I thought I would, then I went to University of Louisville. University of Louisville had written a grant, and that goes back, about where that came from.
1990s, correct?
And they had written a grant from the 35 recommendations that the community had written, and actually sent them to Mayor Abramson at that time. So once that grant was written, they needed someone to manage that grant, and I was hired in to manage the grant.
So, when you talk about smells, because it's several components that was happening in the West End at the time. So there were smells because of wastewater treatment facility, right? But were there other smells?
Oh, there were other smells. We just didn't know what they were.
Okay.
And even now, so when I hear people saying, that they were sick, we weren't sick in my family. We didn't have asthma. We didn't have upper respiratory issues. But I knew plenty of people that did.
Okay.
But there was no way that I associated it with anything that was going on at that time.
So when we're thinking about, because one thing is to have smells from a wastewater treatment facility, but it's another thing to think about because the grant was written for Rubbertown,
Right.
right? So let's talk about the stuff that you don't smell, because that's the carcinogen that people are concerned about in the air.
There are several chemicals, and to be honest with you, I don't want to make a mistake on naming one that is wrong.
Well, I could give you one. There's 1,3-butadiene.
Oh yeah.
Because that's rubber that was made.
Oh, yes,
Rubbertown.
yes, and benzene and acrylonitrile
Right.
and several other chemicals there.
Now, a lot of people don't realize 1,3-butadiene, that's a rubber product. So you look at anything rubber that's made, not just tires, but also it's a carcinogen, which means it causes cancer, and it's also in cigarette smoke. So that was one of the chemicals that I used to help pass a smoking ban. So that's how dangerous that chemical is.
It is dangerous. I think what really got my attention was the number of cancers, the amount of cancer, the amount of heart disease, the amount of upper respiratory issues and diabetes, and how it was so much higher in West Louisville than in other parts of the city. That's what really got my attention. And then I began to correlate it with what was causing it.
And I remember, if we go back some years, I think it was Dr. Tuckson that actually came up did a research study and found high levels of cancer in the West End. But I know our research has been able to make a causation from Rubber Town. So let's fast forward. Now we're doing more research. When is it going to get to a point that you think that we're actually going to make a causation from Rubber Town that has induced people's health?
I think we've already done it. It's whether people have accepted that fact yet.
Okay.
I think when we look at, like we say, those chemicals we're talking about, and if they do exacerbate anything, then we need to deal with that. And the only way we can deal with that right now is to get the people who work on our bodies every day. And that's our doctors. We have had, who have we gone to? We've gone to the environmental toxicologists, the epidemiologists, and thank God for them, and the researchers, environmental engineers, thank God for them. And they have laid the foundation, and they've told us how much we are exposed. They've told us how much we hurt. They've told us our lifespans are actually shorter than those that don't look like us.
So, you bring up an interesting point. Right now, the life expectancy in Rubber Town is 12 years differentiation from the east side of town, but also African American men are probably about 18 years behind life expectancy for everybody else. So it used to be 56 years of age for black men, now it's 65. But the average age of African American women now is about 78. So you're pretty good company. I am not. But that goes back to, why did your family decide to move from the West End?
My family, the family I raised up, was raised up, we didn't move from West End. We moved from 36th and Grand to 41st and River Park.
Okay.
Okay.
But it was a reason that the move occurred.
Yes, it was because 264 highway came through there. Now, we don't want to get into that because we know urban renewal was something else. So that's another discussion.
That's
for
another discussion.
time.
But there were complaints at the time when your family was thinking about moving, not only due to that, but because of air pollution.
I don't know.
Or did that come later?
That came later because we lived. I mean, our whole life was West Louisville, and I grew up at First Virginia Avenue Baptist Church. That's my home church, and at no time was there a conversation about the smells or about chemical, but there was never.
When this study came about in the 90s, I was at Louisville Metro Public Health and I was made aware that high rates of hospitalization came from asthma. And so they was able to track the DRG codes to West End Louisville. But also there were people that were complaining about some like a black silk that was on their cars. What did you hear from residents at that time? Because I remember there were protests that was occurring.
I think that I know that I'm old, but
You're old.
some
I
of
didn't know
those
you were old.
you didn't know I was old.
No, I
but
didn't know.
I just thought
How did you make that assumption?
I just thought I'd tell you that I was still a little girl when some of this was going on. So if my mother didn't tell me I smelled something, I didn't smell it. So what I'm saying is that I didn't take on this until I became, like I say, pretty well grown. Now, the whole thing to it is that we can't talk about things on our cars simply because we didn't have any cars. So we didn't see anything. We rode the bus, and many people in my neighborhood rode the bus. We were a very close-knit neighborhood. So a lot of these things, even if somebody noticed it, it would have been discussed and dismissed.
It was dismissed, even though I actually went out and witnessed it. But you bring up an interesting, well, it's not interesting phenomenon, but a lot of times people accept the conditions in which they live.
Exactly.
Because they don't have a voice.
Exactly.
And so, luckily for the aldermen, Louisville Metro Public Health, and University of Louisville, some of this started to come to light.
Yes.
So in the original study, 608 people actually took a health survey. And within that health survey, of course, cardiovascular disease was high, diabetes. A lot of people did talk about having respiratory issues. And then there was a lawsuit, right? So what came out of that lawsuit? What was that lawsuit about?
The lawsuit, the way I understand it, because I was not into the issues at that time.
Yes, ma'am.
The way I understand it, it was Reverend Coleman's sued DuPont because of the death of his father, who worked there, and a few years after he retired, I understand he died. So he felt that it was reasonable to think that it came from DuPont, and he was probably right. But when you don't have anything to prove, then you do what you do. I understand that many years later, and I don't want to say what I think it is because I may be wrong, but it was several years later that it came to head. But what happened, the way I understand it, is that many people that were involved in the lawsuit, some had died. Some of the beneficiaries didn't know they were the beneficiaries of the lawsuit. But there was money paid out. Now, I have no idea how much was paid out. But there was money paid out, and that was supposed to be the conclusion of the lawsuit. If someone knows something better, please enlighten me.
Hello, my name is Sierra Clark, and I'm the Chronic Disease Manager at Park Duval Community Health Center. Ever since I started at Park Duval over 9 years ago, I have been committed to helping patients live healthier lifestyles. I am currently serving patients in the Chronic Care Management Program, or CCM program. My team and I help patients manage their chronic conditions such as obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. In this CCM program, you will receive several benefits to help you manage your health. We offer monthly telephone calls to check in with your progress and to assist you with any concerns, assistance with scheduling your healthcare appointments, and assistance with filling your prescriptions in a timely and convenient manner. We also offer many resources to help you with the barriers you may face with eating healthy, being physically active, or monitoring your conditions at home. For more information, visit us online at pdchc.org or visit one of our health centers.
Hello, I'm Dr. Swannie Jett. Please make sure you visit one of our 5 locations, not only in Louisville, but outside of Louisville and surrounding areas. Thank you. Well, I do know that there was another lawsuit by residents of the Roberton area, and I think it was $38 million set aside. The judgment might have got overturned, and that was to help a scholarship fund for the residents in the area close to Roberton for kids to go to college. Because we know through decades of people that used to live in the area moved out, and African Americans that moved in could not sell their homes due to the issues at Robertown. The other part of that story is interesting because there was no EPA toxic release study where you can go in and actually put the data of emissions until 1997. So due to that, a lot of people that worked in these type of plants were actually exposed internally.
That's right.
Because they didn't have the proper EPA standards for the joints or any points in the plant. So African Americans were exposed at high levels because I did the research and found that they were exposed at high levels and they died from cancers, but also whatever was in the plant, they brought it home to their families. So if they didn't leave their shoes or their clothes at the door, they actually tracked it into the house.
Well, some of it, you have to look at what exactly happened. Now, if you worked at Reynolds, I actually worked at Reynolds, and I didn't work in the plant. I worked in the office, but I worked with all the guys walking through the office, coming in to get papers signed,
Now,
blah, blah, blah,
explain
blah, blah.
what Reynolds is, because a lot of people
Reynolds
might not know
Metals.
Reynolds.
Reynolds metals, and that's what they do. They
Because I could have been in R.J. Reynolds, which is tobacco.
right.
Just
This was
give me the
Reynolds.
proper line.
This was Reynolds metals,
Okay.
and what they produced, there was a white dust, from their processing, and these guys would come out, and I say guys, I never saw a woman that worked in there. Maybe there was, and
Who wanted to have white silk on?
I know it, but
Okay,
I'm
so
just
I
saying
wouldn't-
and if it was, I couldn't tell,
Right.
because everybody looked alike, when they came out there. And I used to think about this, because the guys they dust it off and get in their trucks and go home, and I think their wives got to say, take that stuff off before you come in here. But it didn't hit me. See, I'm working there as a student, just in doing a summer program. So I was right there. I guess you say I kind of was right there with it. Did not realize what it was. And now that I'm sitting here thinking about this, going through this scenario with you, Dr. Jett, is that there were so many of us just like me that was there, and we just didn't know. So we have a lot of people that are now talking about it, but you probably have as many that can't talk about it as they knew it because they didn't know it. Now I can look back. There were things that have happened to my family. We've had things that were common to all the women, that we've all had to have the same surgeries. Did it come from being in that? It probably was. But we have no foundation
So
to
it
really
takes a
say
while for research to occur.
that. To catch up.
And of course, you have to do a longitudinal study.
And then the other thing was that when you were talking about all of the people that were involved, you remember the only EPA didn't come into existence to the 70s.
That's correct.
So when we talk about all the things that existed, that was the one thing I had to try to convince people who fought so hard against a new regulation program, that you are the first line of exposure, sir. You're complaining, I may lose my job. And I'm thinking to myself, I felt secure, no job would be lost, and it wasn't. But the point of the matter is that it took me a while to convince some of those that came to me that worked there, we're making it better for you too. And that was hard to convince.
Well, you have to think, the history of Louisville was a blue-collar city, and it was more industrialized. So when you had the Ford, the LG&E, GE, and Rubbertown. And a lot of people don't realize historically Rubbertown was used by the military.
Yes.
And for both wars, World War I, World War II. And so they made a lot of green stuff out of there. If you were to say a lot of rubber.
Yeah.
And then it just carried on. So people really didn't know what they were being exposed to.
Right.
And even today, I mean, we have done a great job, I would say, all of our collaborative together to help make sure the STAR program was put in place. And now we have reduced emissions. So tell us a little bit about the research project that we have going now. And why it's important for citizens to be in tune. If we don't want to start all the way back and come forward, we have told little bitty pieces up until now, but there really is another story there that needs to be told. But actually, where we are right now, this is the way I kind of say it, is that a lot of people, want to know, how come we don't know this? How come we, And I always say, well, sometimes it has to blow up for us to show up. And we're trying to get away from that. We're trying to, get people involved. I've had several people call me. We don't even have the October 19th EJ conference up yet. But they looked online and they saw that we have talked about it. And I've gotten calls. I want to make sure I sign up for this. So now I'm going, okay, so maybe we are reaching a few more people. So what is this EJ conference? What is?
The Environmental Justice Conference. This is a part of the ROTHA grant. But this is the West Evans County Task Force has had this for 8 years. So we just we're just including that in the grant now.
Now, explain the grant. What is the grant?
The ROTHA grant, the Rubbertown Action Health Assessment Grant. This
You mentioned Rotha, so I'm starting. I'm like, this is some heavy acronym. So, break this down so we understand together what this is. I mean, you have an understanding, but I don't.
Well, what it was, and when you do a grant, you have to come up with a name.
Right.
So that's the name
You gotta have an acronym.
You gotta have an acronym. Okay. So that was the name that we came up with, simply because everything we're piecing it together from Rubbertown, all the things, the studies that have been done. So it just kind of made it where it should be named Rubbertown.
Okay.
And then the rest of it, health assessment. The way I look at it, we've reduced emissions now about 85%, which is good. This is known across the United States. Some people find it hard to accept. We need to do better. Of course we need to do better. But we've done so much that it has been recognized. So what I say that we've done, we've kind of cleaned the house. We swept it out. It's no sense in trying to work on you as an individual if you're still living in the same condition. So we've swept it out. We've cleaned it up a little bit. Now let's find out what we can do for you. And as an individual, we have to try to bring the people that give you the instructions on how to live a better life.
Tune in to CEO Live Talks with Dr. Swannie Jett every Saturday at noon on Wave 3. In this thought-provoking series, we bring you conversations with influential leaders, visionaries, and changemakers who are making a difference in their communities and beyond. From healthcare innovation and public health initiatives to community building, each episode offers a unique perspective on the challenges and opportunities we face in today's dynamic landscape. Join us as we explore the stories and insights of these inspiring individuals and gain valuable knowledge that can drive positive change in your own life and community. Don't miss an episode. Mark your calendar for Saturdays at noon on Wave 3 to watch CEO Live Talks with Dr. Swannie Jett. Together, we can shape a brighter, healthier future for all. Hello, I'm Dr. Swannie Jett, CEO for Park Duval Community Health Centers. We conduct WIC, nutrition, and open enrollment for healthcare. So this is a one-stop shop facility for everybody in the community. So the meetings is important to make the community aware that we have a grant that's focused on air pollution.
And their health.
And their health, but also now we want to get the data to help you come up with better health outcomes. You come through Park Duval, which the other layer is, we're going to open up a farmer's market next year. So if we find you missing some of those nutrients that you talked about, you can come to our site. What do we hope to gain out of this study?
A healthier individual.
Healthy individual. What about if, let's say we find something, and because we've praised that we have reduced air pollution by 85%, but we find that that's not the case. What's our expected outcome in terms of policy recommendations?
That's where the discussion has to go.
Okay.
I can't even sit here and say, because, there are so many things that are out there, new House bill that they just passed where actually companies can when they make a mistake, if they fix the mistake, then they shouldn't have to report it, that the mistake is made.
Now,
we have to know about things like that. That's not nuts for us to get into right now. But I mean, we have to be aware of these things that our politicians are doing and stay abreast of what's going on. So once we, just like the STAR, regulation, what that was, I was threatened, I know where you live and all this type of stuff.
I remember the START program scared a lot of people.
It scared, but it scared the industry.
Right.
Didn't scare the people, scared the industry.
Mainly, was it DuPont? Because I remember the issues that surrounded it.
Remember DuPont left.
DuPont left right after the...
Yeah, but it had nothing to do with the STAR. They had already planned to leave.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so I don't take credit for that. I would like to take credit, but I don't take credit for that. But see, when they left...
But they left and went to West Virginia?
I'm not sure where they where they went
I
to.
think they went to West Virginia and polluted that area.
Yeah, yes. But now the chloroprene, the good thing is that they were the only one that were responsible for chloroprene.
Okay.
So when they left, they took that with them.
Okay.
So if nothing else happened, and chloroprene is bad,
Yeah.
and once they took that, that was a good thing. So now it was the rest of them leaving. And I have to brag a little bit on American Synthetics, who's just now put $50 million and taken down all the coal-fired instruments. And now they're going to natural gas. It's supposed to be completed within a couple of years.
That's huge.
And of course, somebody there walked up to me and said, "I think you're to blame for this."
Well, I think a lot of times, and this is just how society moves, we might come up with a new instrument, new toy,
Yes.
or new product, but we don't understand the ramifications until 20 years down the road. So in defense of the plants in Robertown, they probably just didn't know how dangerous it was.
Yes.
Now, when you talk about cigarettes, then that's something else. That people, actually, researchers probably knew because it was dangerous chemicals, and that's why they was facing lawsuits. But I don't think Robertown intended to have employees working in the plant exposed and then have some of the employees die. But I did see a lot of research that it did impact African Americans at a greater loss than it did other communities. So
Well, now, you know what I always wanted to see and hear, and I never could really get it, and that was OSHA. The studies from OSHA. I mean, those are the ones. That's the occupational safety hazard folks.
that's who should have been in charge.
Yeah, that really, to me should have been number one on the
forefront.
front line when it came to the employees. And I never could make inroads into that, And now think of it maybe. But anyway, we never could make inroads into that. So
When is the next community forum? You know by chance?
the next thing that's going to happen actually is the EJ conference.
Okay.
Now, the first part, we will be going more in depth into the Ratha again. The second half is where we're inviting all environmental groups, all community residents, anybody that wants to come, and we hope they're there. And I've even gotten several medical folks who have stepped up to the plate and said, we'll be there. I think that will be so impactful because we need to have, the pediatricians and the hematologists and, other folks who can give a little piece of how important or how we can move this forward.
And how can people find out more information about the conference? Is it on your website?
Go on Eventbrite, because that's where they have to sign up for the ticket.
And they just look for Ratha?
Just
or
look
they
for Ratha.
Environmental Justice?
Ratha, Eventbrite, and it'll come up because the other one's still there, so don't pay attention to it because it's over. But the next one you'll see is October the 19th.
All right.
And it is free. We're not charging this year.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming to the show.
All right.
I want anybody that has been impacted by environmental issues, from air pollution to even the smells. If you've been exposed, please come out that day. Thank you.